Lanzerath Ridge, the stand of 18. The wind had turned to knives that December morning. Snow hard as salt whipped across the frozen fields of the Ardennes, and the forest groaned under its own weight. The village of Lanzerath, a cluster of stone houses and one narrow road, lay silent under the white storm. Somewhere beyond those trees, the largest German attack of the Western Front was beginning, but the men in the observation post did not know that yet. 18 Americans, boys mostly, crouched behind frost-covered sandbags. Their leader, Lieutenant Lyle Bouck, only 24, pressed his glove against the icy binoculars. He had been told this sector was quiet, perfect for a reconnaissance platoon to sit out the winter, yet the horizon flickered red like lightning. "Artillery," someone whispered. "Ours?" Nobody answered. Moments later, the earth trembled. The air split with a sound like a mountain breaking in half. Shells rained down across the Losheim Gap, bursting the stillness of dawn. The Battle of the Bulge had begun, though no one here had heard that name yet. Bouck ran to the field phone. Dead. The line was cut. Radio 2. Silence. Only static. Down the road came retreating Americans, hundreds of them, some without helmets, others dragging the wounded. "They've come through!" a sergeant yelled. "Thousands of them! Tanks, infantry, all of them!" He didn't stop running. Bouck looked east. The forest was alive with movement, but orders were orders. Observe, report, and delay if possible. He gathered his men in the stone farmhouse overlooking the crossroads. "No retreat, unless I give the word," he said. "We hold this ridge as long as we can. We're the only ones between them and the division." The men nodded, silent. They were scouts, not meant for pitched battles, but there was nowhere to go. The calm before the storm. Night fell early. The farmhouse, belonging to the Peters family, stood like a lone ship in an ocean of snow. Inside, the air stank of oil, cordite, and fear. Sivola cleaned his rifle in the dim light, his hands shaking from cold. Lambert mended a torn glove. In the cellar, the farmer's wife whispered prayers, clutching her 2 children. Outside, flares lit the forest. German troops, hundreds of them, moved into position. Bouck saw their helmets glint under the moonlight. Fallschirmjäger, the elite German paratroopers, led by Colonel Friedrich von der Heide, a knighted veteran of Crete and Casino. They were 500 strong, disciplined, confident, expecting an easy breakthrough. But von der Heide hesitated. The Americans had held their fire, invisible in the snow. "Too quiet," he murmured. He ordered his men to wait until dawn. In the farmhouse, the Americans dug in deeper. They set their 3 Browning machine guns in upstairs windows, rifles braced along the fence and bazookas by the barn. The snow kept falling, covering the trenches, muffling every sound. By midnight, breath turned to ice on their collars. No one slept. "Think they'll hit us tonight?" Seconis asked. Bouck stared into the darkness. "If they're smart, they'll wait till morning. If not, we'll find out." First contact. At dawn, fog hung low like smoke. The forest stirred. Then they saw them. Lines of gray uniforms moving through the snow, rifles slung, advancing quietly. Bouck waited, heart hammering. "Hold. Hold," he whispered. 50 meters. "Fire!" Machine guns exploded. The first German ranks disintegrated. Men fell without a sound, their bodies tumbling into the drifts. The survivors dove for cover, the air filled with shrieking bullets and snow dust. MG-42s answered back. Faster, louder, tearing the farmhouse walls like paper. For 15 minutes, chaos ruled. Then silence. The paratroopers pulled back, leaving dozens of dead. Bouck reloaded his rifle, his hands numb. "That was a probe," he said. "They'll come harder next time." They did. At 8 o'clock, mortar fire began. Shells bursting along the fence. Roof tiles shattered, splinters flying. A second wave advanced. 100 men at least. Sivola, crouched by the window, counted 5, then 10. "They're flanking," he shouted. Bouck grabbed the radio, tried again, Satos. Nothing but hiss. He aimed his M1 and fired till the barrel smoked. When the Germans finally withdrew, one of his men, Private McConnell, lay still, a bullet through the throat. No one spoke for a long time. Snow kept falling through the broken roof. The siege. By midday, the paratroopers came again. Von der Heide had sent his entire battalion. Mortars pounded the ridge. The house shook like a drum. The Peters family huddled in the cellar while dust fell from the ceiling like ash. Upstairs, Savola reloaded belt after belt into the machine gun, until his hands bled from the brass casings. A shell struck the barn. It vanished in flame. "They're coming from the left!" shouted Lambert. The men turned their guns, mowing down another line of gray shapes. Smoke and snow mixed into a blinding haze. Von der Heid, watching from the tree line, clenched his fists. "Who are they?" "Americans don't fight like this in retreat." His adjutant estimated a full company defending the ridge. In truth, only 17 men still fought. 1 had been killed, 2 wounded. At 2:30 p.m., the Germans attacked under cover of smoke. They reached the yard this time. Grenades exploded through the windows. The house filled with fire and splinters. 3 Germans broke in through the door, bayonets ready. Savola shot one at point-blank range. Another swung his rifle butt into Lambert's face. Buck tackled him, smashing his pistol against the man's helmet. When it was over, 3 Germans lay dead inside, and 2 Americans were bleeding badly. The air smelled of blood and burnt wood. "They won't stop," Bouck muttered. "But neither will we." Von der Heid's frustration. In the forest, the German colonel paced like a caged wolf. Already 120 casualties, for one house. His orders from higher command were clear: breakthrough by afternoon. Tanks of the 1st SS Panzer Division waited for his signal. Every hour of delay risked the offensive, yet this tiny American platoon had blocked the road completely. "Bypass them?" his aide suggested. "No. If we leave them, they'll hit our flank when the tanks roll through. We clear this village or die trying." He ordered all remaining mortars forward. The next barrage would erase Lanzerath from the map. The Inferno. By 4 o'clock, daylight was fading. Only 12 Americans could still fight. Ammunition was almost gone. A single belt per machine gun, a handful of rifle clips. The Peters house was burning. Smoke turned the sky black. Inside, flames licked the ceiling, and the farmer screamed for his home. Bouck shoved him back toward the cellar. "You can rebuild a house," he said. "You can't rebuild freedom." Then, through the smoke, a voice, calm, deep, German. "Americans! Listen to me!" Von der Heide stood outside unarmed, his face pale under the snow. "Lieutenant, you have fought bravely, but you are surrounded. Surrender, and I guarantee your safety under the Geneva Convention." Buck hesitated. Around him his men were bleeding, coughing, exhausted. Savola's uniform was torn. Sikonis could barely load. "What do you think, Lieutenant?" Lambert asked quietly. Bouck looked at them. "We've held them 10 hours, he said. "If we quit now, all this was for nothing." He turned toward the window and shouted, "No surrender!" Von der Heide stood motionless, then nodded once. "So be it." He turned away. The mortars began again. The roof collapsed. Fire swallowed the upper floor. Still they fired back until even the machine guns clicked empty. Bouck drew his pistol, the last weapon left. 7 bullets. He saved one for himself. Deliverance. At dusk, the rumble of engines echoed from the west. At first, the Americans thought it was more Germans. Then, a star on the tanks, not a cross. Shermans. Major Paul Garnett, commanding a combat group of the 99th Division, had fought through a forest detour after a lone scout from Bouck's platoon reached headquarters hours earlier. His tanks burst into Lanzerath, guns blazing. The first shells slammed into German lines. The paratroopers scattered. Von der Heide watched from the ridge. "Impossible," he whispered. "We had them." He ordered retreat. When silence finally fell, the battlefield steamed with smoke. The snow was red and black. Garnett's men entered the ruins. "Anyone alive?" he shouted. From beneath the rubble came faint voices. "Here!" The cellar. They found 12 men, burned, frozen, shaking. Lieutenant Bouck sat against the wall, pistol still in his hand. When Garnett knelt beside him, he whispered, "We held them." "You did more than that, son," said the major softly. "You stopped them cold." Aftermath. They counted 143 German dead in and around the village, nearly 200 wounded. The Americans had lost 4 killed, 7 wounded. When they were evacuated that night, only 47 rounds remained between them all. Von der Heide's battalion, reduced from 500 to fewer than 200 men, never reached its objective. The delay at Lanzerath bought the Allies 12 critical hours, enough for reinforcements to form new lines west of the Elsenborn Ridge. Hitler's grand offensive, meant to split the Allied armies, was broken before it began. In his post-war memoir, the German colonel wrote, "At Lanzerath, we met resistance that defied reason. 18 men held off my entire regiment. Had I known their number, I would not have believed it. They were the bravest soldiers I encountered in the war." He survived the war, surrendered in May 1945, and later became a professor of law. But the memory of Lanzerath never left him. Legacy. Lieutenant Lyle Bouck returned home to Missouri, married, and became a schoolteacher. He rarely spoke of the battle. When asked, he only said, "We did what we had to do." He died in 1981. Sivola, Lambert, and Sakonis lived long enough to attend his funeral. Lanzerath was rebuilt from ashes. The Peters family returned in 1946. The farmer's son Herman grew up remembering the smell of smoke and the faces of those young soldiers who refused to run. In 1994, on the battle's 50th anniversary, he erected a granite memorial beside the same crossroads. Here, 18 American soldiers delayed the advance of 500 German paratroopers on December 16th to 17th, 1944. They gave the Allies time to defend and Europe time to breathe. We remember them. Every December 17th, villagers gather there. They light candles in the snow and read the names aloud: Bouck, Sivola, Sakonis, Lambert, McConnell, and the others. In 2014, Robert Sakonis Jr., the son of one of those defenders, visited the site. An old man approached him, his coat heavy with medals. "You are his son?" he asked softly. Robert nodded. "My father said the hardest thing wasn't the shells or the cold," he said. "It was the fear of letting each other down." The old man looked at the stone plaque. "Then they didn't let anyone down," he said. "They saved this village, and maybe the world." Epilogue. War is not strategy or glory. It is 18 boys in a shattered house, with 1 pistol and 47 rounds, holding a road that must not fall. It is frostbitten fingers on frozen triggers, courage that comes after fear, and loyalty that endures when hope runs out. History remembers generals, Eisenhower, Patton, Montgomery, but the shape of victory is carved by lieutenants who decide to stay 1 more minute. Bouck's platoon did not win a battle. They delayed an army. And in war, sometimes delay is victory enough. Von der Heide later said, "I understood then why we were losing. My men fought because they were told to. The Americans fought because they believed in each other. That cannot be defeated." And so Lanzerath stands as more than a story of war. It is the measure of what freedom costs and why it endures. 18 men who knew why they fought, against 500 who merely obeyed. That is how history turns. That is how courage survives.